Hey there, and welcome to another episode of Bliss Boss Talks. This is a pep talk, and it is all about how to prepare for rapid growth and avoid sabotage. Welcome to Bliss Boss Talks. I'm your host, Jaya Rose, a life coach, speaker, doTERRA team leader, and a mama of two free-spirited girls. And you are in the right place if you are ready to live your dreams without sacrificing your needs. I'm going to be talking to other soulful leaders who are walking the talk, and we are touching on all things personal development, spirituality, and what it really takes to be the boss of your bliss. Are you ready? Let's go. Now, I put this question in my Facebook group, Boss of Your Bliss, and I thought it was fascinating because I put it along with three other topics. And I was like, oh, who knows which one people really resonate with. And this was a resounding leader, meaning that maybe this is a time of rapid growth, or I just surround myself with people who are always growing, and that may be the case. But what happens is it's very easy to get into a place of self-sabotage and burnout when we have a lot of growth. So I want to specifically lay down some strategies for you. One, to go into a time of growth, feeling like you're prepared, feeling like you are the one in charge, even though all sorts of crazy shit happens when we're growing and changing, and there are many elements that you have no control over. And so my intention here is to give you some things that you can focus on and different ways to think about this and actions to take so that you can control the parts that you can control. Now, I want to do a little kind of disclaimer here, and that is that I have been called controlling in my life more than once, more than 5 times, okay? A lot of times. And I think it's really interesting because this idea that we're controlling because we want to have a good outcome, or because you're rapidly growing and your intention is to serve other people and you're breaking down barriers that your family has set in place. Like, hello, we are doing really big things here. Even if all you're doing is getting up and working on your positive self-talk, that is a fucking revelation. Revolution? Both. It will be both. And I just really want you to take seriously this concept that it's totally fine to be controlling, okay? It is way different to be controlling of you and your environment and these core 4 things that we're going to talk about today than other people, because you take control over your life and how you want to feel, especially around growth and getting to choose whether you're going to sabotage yourself or not. That is not controlling. It's way different than if you're telling someone else how they have to be, or, trying to control other people. And so I just want to say that like we need to blow that idea out of the water and say, no, it's actually really good for me to take control, the control that I have. And so that's what I want to talk about specifically. I'm going to break this down into 2 sections. The first section really is preparing for this rapid growth. Now, what you're going to find that's interesting is that the focus is actually really similar to avoiding sabotage. So I want you to write these things down, do some journaling around it, and really consider what I'm saying about this, because you will be able to use this as check-in points over and over again. Whether or not you are doing the preparing or you're in the receiving of something and that little bit of sabotage starts to trickle in, okay? So just notice these threads. So what we're going to talk about are really these ways to create a grounding foundation. So what happens when you're about to go into a time of rapid growth very often is that we forget about our foundation and we just start to lift off. Right? We're like, oh, we're just going to go now. And what happens is you can get to a place where you're already feeling stressed out and overwhelmed before you're even bringing something to fruition or receiving. Yes. And what that means is, 1, It's never a good place to be when you're about to maybe launch something new or speak on stage for the first time, or maybe it's going on someone's podcast for the first time. You're doing something that requires more of you, and it requires more of the best version of you, not of the stressed out and overwhelmed because you've been preparing for this thing the whole time. And I really want you to consider this, that the foundation you have when you're going into these new experiences, when you're doing things that push you to your edge, is actually the time that you need to be focusing the most on these foundational pieces. But again, so often we're not, and we're just focusing on the day-to-day task that feels required of us. Yes, that making sense to you? And I'm going to lay out for you these 4 pieces that are super, super important to look at. And it takes practice, but this is where the sabotage begins. So many sensitive, highly sensitive, soulful women who are in a position of leadership, either in their family, in their own life, let's face it, we're all leaders, or in the public eye or in their career, forget about themselves and do this sabotage thing. So sabotage is a huge conversation to have, and it starts at the foundation. And so these are the 4 things that I see as foundational, and you may want to add some of your own. Okay. So number 1 is your health and your self-care. And how often does it happen that you get going and you're in a project, maybe you get stressed out, maybe you get a headache? I see women all the time with headaches that are quite obviously sabotage or an upper limit to receiving what's coming in. And we really need to take this seriously. So especially before you have something big going on, you need to make sure you're getting that sleep, that you're fitting the exercise in, that you're taking your supplements, that you're using your essential oils, that you're eating the healthy food. And again, as we go into the sabotage, you'll see that when we're not doing those things, we are literally sabotaging the potential results we can get from this growth.
Hey, so sorry to interrupt. I hope you're loving this episode, and make sure to stick around for the rest of it. I just wanted to pop in and let you know that I have a beautiful free resource for you. All you need to do is head over to thejayarose.com and scroll down till you see the invitation to download the Bold Self Playbook. In this playbook, I walk you through the 5 mindset principles that will help you embody your most powerful self and magnetize your dreams. This is a game changer, and you must have these 5 mindset practices and principles in place to really take it to the next level and truly be embodying that version of yourself you're ready to step into. So head on over to thejayarose.com and download it. Can't wait to hear what you think, and keep on listening.
So health, key, the foundation, right? Duh. The second one is a little bit interesting. You might not think about this all the time, but it's your space. I know for me that before something's going on, I forget to put my laundry away. All my clothes are on the floor. My office feels like a mess. And it's not to say it has to be perfect, because it's not going to. But if you can start to look at these things and say, hey, okay, because we do this before a trip or something, right? We're like, let me clean up the house. Let me make sure that my space feels good so that I can grow in this space and not feel cramped and overwhelmed and frustrated by my living situation. So this is just a good one to notice. And I know that I will sabotage myself by just ignoring it. And then I feel so overwhelmed, but then I just do it and I just unpack the suitcase or clean up the stuff, and I feel so much better, and I'm able to integrate the growth better. Yeah. So your space. Number 3 is your time. Booking out your time up until the event or the trip or the thing that you're getting prepared for is the hugest mistake so many people make. And I used to do it all the time. Like, oh, we're not leaving till 2 p.m. Well, let me just book a few clients in the morning. Right? oh, I'm getting back on Tuesday evening. So of course I can take the kids to school on Wednesday and have my mom over for dinner. We really need to consider our time, just like we consider our health. And this is so, so powerful to start to include these things in. So when you're preparing for something, don't overbook yourself. And start to notice if you overbook yourself, tell yourself it's the last time, make a declaration and just say, no, that's it. I will not do this again. Because what you'll notice is that then you get to really ask the powerful questions like, what do I really need to feel really good as I'm packing or as I'm preparing? What do I need to feel good? And you need to prioritize that as the time that's included in whatever this event or bigger, expansive time in your life is. And especially the returning from something, as if we're supposed to be freaking superheroes, right? And so, yes, this is the preparation for not sabotaging yourself. When you do it, the sabotage has begun. So time, okay? The last piece of this is relationships. Have you ever noticed that you get crankier, you get more irritable, and basically maybe even more disconnected from probably your partner, but maybe it's your kids. For me, my older daughter is 21 and we have like a real relationship, and I see that I get crankier with her, but for sure my husband too. And so the piece that I want to touch on in terms of preparation is really about communicating what's going to happen. So you are a grown person, right? Okay. You're a grown person and you have been through enough change and enough growth and understanding of yourself that you could predict a few things. Am I right? Could you, if you had to right now, because Jaya said so, get out a piece of paper and write down a few things that you could predict would happen. Like I'm going to be crankier. Okay. I'm going to be more tired. I'm going to need help with food preparation for that week. These things that just start slipping through the cracks, and then your relationships pay for it. And in return, you do, because how bad does it feel when you have friction in your relationships? It's so hard to function in a positive way. Now, I have had this happen repetitively. I will give you a short story to prove my point. And I was speaking at an event 3 weeks ago, and I was really excited because it was in Portland, and I was getting to just get up, at a normal time. I didn't have to pack a suitcase or anything, and I was going. And as we were leaving, I said to my husband, wait a minute, you could totally come. We already took Ava to school. He could just come in the event. I was speaking first. And he didn't want to come. And not only that, he was not sensitive about it. And he was like, something to the effect of like, oh, well, I don't know. I had stuff to do today. And I was like, ugh, just crushed. I was crushed because that, part of me that wants to be loved and showed admiration and adoration was just not having it. And instead of, just saying that at that point, because I was not in a place to, I needed to process it for a minute. I just felt hurt. And it was about 8 a.m. right then. And I needed to leave the house at 8:45. I was planning on doing yoga, my essential oils, and maybe tapping or just some mindset preparation to go speak on stage. Now, what an amazing opportunity for sabotage. Did I have a valid reason to be upset? Many would say yes. I mean, any reason that you have to be upset is valid if you choose it. And I said something to myself that I had said to a client earlier that week. Thank God I'm a life coach and get to say all this stuff to people all the time. So I remind myself, because I thought, okay, Jaya, this is a rabbit hole. Like, here we go down the rabbit hole. I'm going to have hurt feelings. And then what am I going to do? Go on stage carrying the shit with me? And so I sat with it and I said to myself what I had said to my client, which was, hurt feelings are an excuse to not follow your purpose. Okay. Hurt feelings are just an excuse not to follow your purpose. And I boldly said that to a client. And I thought, okay, so it's not that I don't deserve to feel what I feel, because I do. But if I just dive into these hurt feelings and sit with them and allow them to sabotage the time, the 45 minutes of self-care time I have before going on stage, who is that serving? And is it ultimately serving my highest good and my purpose, or anybody else? A resounding no, right? No, it is not. And so in this moment, I made a choice, and I went to my husband and I said, I just want you to know that that hurt my feelings. And I really want you to be excited to see me speak. And he was heartfelt and gave me a hug. And he said that he was stressed out about this thing he had going on that day. And he really did want to see me. And at that point, I just let it go. I thought, you know what? This man hears me talk all the time. You know, is it a big deal? Like, is it really a big deal that he's there? Or is it a big deal that I want him to be there? And in that, it was able to release. And I got to show up for my speaking gig feeling good and aligned and on purpose. So this is an example of relationships. Now, one of the things that I would highly recommend is starting to see these kind of patterns. Like, oh, as I'm growing and outstretching, is that the right thing? Outstretching, stretching out into the space that has been created in this partnership or relationship. And that doesn't feel comfortable anymore. Like, it doesn't feel like there's room for all of you, and the stuff that's going on is irritating and you just don't like it. It's really important, like I began this conversation around relationships, to prepare. And the best way I have found to do this is through communication. And to sit your partner down and say, hey, I feel some rapid growth coming on. I need X, Y, and Z. I need some support around this, and I might get cranky, and I need forgiveness when I do. And so to really just recognize that preparing for rapid growth means that you are literally preparing, but in all different ways. So you're preparing your health and your well-being. You're preparing your space so that it feels good. You're preparing your time so that the time is set up so that it's honoring your growth. And then you're preparing your relationships. It is so powerful to do these things because we will get derailed. As sensitive, soulful people or women, we so easily can allow hurt feelings and these little things in relationships to just crash us, right? So we don't want that. We don't want it to crash you because you have big things to do. Okay. Are you with me? So I have definitely touched on sabotage. I'm going to dive a little bit into actually how to recognize if you're sabotaging yourself. So let's assume that you have prepared. You're like, I am feeling good in my body. I am feeling good in my self-care. My space is prepared as best I could. You know, I did not schedule a million things for the day I return, or for the week after a launch, or for whatever it is that you're focusing on, and your relationship is prepared. Okay, well, this is what I want to say. Awesome. God bless you. And some shit's going to come up. There is going to be resistance. So the main thing we can recognize is that resistance is here really to keep us safe. And sabotage is also here to keep us safe. And it's so sweet of that, whatever it is. I feel like it's like a creature or something, you know, it's like a whole thing of its own, a whole life of its own. But it's not serving us anymore. And the old patterns of resistance and sabotage are not serving us. So we get to choose and we get to look at it. So the resistance will be the indicator that the sabotage is coming on. So you will resist going to sleep at a regular hour. You will resist eating the healthy food versus the salty, carby food that doesn't make you feel good. You will resist asking for your needs and go right into being irritable and just wishing that everybody could read your mind. You will resist these things. And the best thing we can do is understand that that is going to happen each and every time. Now, we can call them upper limits. We can call it resistance, whatever you want. But I bet you right now, you can think of different scenarios in your life that this happens and comes up. And after a time of rapid growth, or in the middle of a time of rapid growth, the best thing you can do is recognize that your resistance is something you have to have a relationship with, and it is real. And notice in these 4 categories that we talked about, your health, your space, your time, and your relationships, where you're getting resistance to showing up inside of those things. Because those are the same places that you're going to sabotage. And they're the exact same, which is so cool that you get to think, oh, okay, I'm going to create a foundation around these components of my life that help me show up better. And then I'm going to just go ahead and sabotage all of them. Well, hey, at least you don't have to learn a bunch of new stuff, because you already have been creating the skills, framework, and relationship to really show up inside of it. Are you feeling me? So when you are in the middle or on the outside of the growth, you got to recognize that what will happen is you will get pushed back. So just like how the ocean comes in and it goes out, and it does this with force. There's no just like, I'm just going to sit still, right? It's either coming in or out. And that's a lot like how we grow emotionally and spiritually. And even physically, we tend to wax and wane with what things feel like. So prepare yourself for this pullback. It's going to happen. And then just be patient and be kind and start back over. How can I honor myself today? How can I get back into it today and give myself the time and space? So that is really what I want to say. What are your core needs? One of the core questions that I always like to ask myself is, what do I need around this? So whatever is happening in my life through the growth and through these 4 pillars that we're talking about, you're going to have needs. And if you're asking yourself that question, you have the opportunity to begin to meet them more, which will create that foundation and help you be able to grow more and expand more without as much resistance and sabotage, which is the name of the game. That's when you see people and you're like, how are they growing so fast? What are they doing? I feel like I'm over here just sabotaging myself. Well, you might be, and that's okay. But the only thing they're doing differently is they're managing their sabotage and their resistance, and they're doing it, I guarantee you, through these 4 things that we're talking about right here. So I hope this was super helpful for you. And thank you so much for joining me today on Bliss Boss Talks.
Yay. Thanks so much for listening and being here. And if you loved this episode, please take a moment to rate it on iTunes. I feel so honored when I read your reviews, and I would love to feature you on the podcast as a spotlight review. Also, find me on Instagram at Jaya Rose, and I would be so excited to share your story into my story. I just love seeing the feedback and that you're listening. So share it out on social media. Share it with somebody who you think it could benefit, because us showing up for other people is what this is all about. It's a ripple effect of change, and we do that by sharing. So thanks for being here, and I'll see you next time on Bliss Boss Talks.